Elden Ring is a massive game that weaves together so many different cultural and mythological traditions, it's inevitable that a few things are bound to get lost in translation. Most infamously, the ending cutscene and the additional dialogue for Ranni's Age of Stars had some very different implications between the Japanese and English versions. And unfortunately, there was yet another massive mistranslation in the DLC. The Japanese reveals very different motivations for Miquella. Now, the mistranslation comes from Miquella's Great Rune, which you get after defeating the Shadow Tree avatar. And this is the same Great Rune that allowed Miquella to charm multiple people. And we see the effects of when Miquella shattered the Great Rune. According to its description, this was a Great Rune relinquished by Miquella. Broken and bereft of its bounty, it retains naught but the power to resist charms. Miquella set off for the tower enshrouded by shadow, abandoning everything.
His golden flesh, his blinding strength, even his fate.
Now, the mistranslation comes from the final line of the description, all in an effort to bury the original sin, to embrace the whole of it, and be reborn as a new god. Now, the phrase original sin also appears in the remembrance for Mesmer, a malevolent snake writhed within Mesmer, and so his very mother plucked out his eye and put in its place a seal of grace. Yet, having done so, her fear compelled her to secret away her child within the realm of shadow, hidden away, keeping company with the original sin and a hatred that would not be confined. To bury the original sin implies that Miquella wants to undo America's actions. But in the Japanese, there's no mention at all of sin, original or otherwise, in Miquella's Great Rune. Instead of sin, the key concept in the final line is causality, or inga, and this kanji is deeply interconnected with the concept of karma in Buddhism. So the final line for Miquella's Great Rune could be translated as to become a new god who would embrace everything beyond the causality that has endured since the beginning, or to become a new god who embraces everything and to transcend the causality that has persisted since the beginning. Or if you want to keep the structure of what's currently in the game, all in an effort to go beyond causality, to embrace the whole of it, and be reborn as a new god. So for consistency, Inga should have been translated as causality. It's baffling that it wasn't. It's already the name of a spell in the game, Law of Causality. The spell manifests a small ring of causality within that allows the caster to automatically retaliate upon receiving a certain number of blows. The fundamentalists describe the Golden Order through the powers of regression and causality. Causality is the pull between meanings, that which links all things in a chain of relation. The law of regression is essential to find out the truth behind Radagon, that is, he is actually Marika. Likewise, I think the law of causality is also key to understanding Miquella, and the spell is deeply connected with Miquella, since that's the spell you get from Gideon after you defeat Moog. And Gideon says this:
"So Miquella was with the Lord of Blood after all. That is some fine intelligence indeed. With it, the final clue has been brought into the light. One of the last few pieces of the round table. I need to put everything together. As promised, allow me to impart to you the last of the secret rites known only to me." Well, I wonder what comes next. If he continues his slumber within the cocoon, all would be well. But perhaps it would be safer to destroy it. Miquella is the one thing that remains a mystery to me.
So in the English version, the usage of original sin in Miquella's Great Rune heavily implies that he is motivated to undo Marika's mistakes. But to go beyond causality implies that Miquella's goal is much, much broader, since he wants to transcend one of the very principles that underlie Golden Order fundamentalism. That raises the question, what does it mean to go beyond causality? And is such a thing even possible? As it happens, that's been a pressing question in Buddhism. The concept of cause and effect is heavily interlinked with the concept of karma, and karma is essential to creating a system of cosmic justice. A good cause yields a good result, and an evil cause yields an evil effect. And since people are stuck in samsara, the cycle of death and rebirth, karma accumulates over multiple lifetimes. There is even an expression in Japan, jigo jitoku, which can mean the karma produced is the karma received. You get what you deserve, you reap what you sow. Just so we're clear, the Christian doctrine of original sin is very different from the Buddhist doctrine of causality. The concepts of original sin and grace are still very important to understanding Merika and Mesmer, and I will be discussing them in a separate video. There are a wide variety of interpretations and beliefs when it comes to causality in Buddhism. For instance, in the Nihon Reiki, the foolish are those who ignore the consequences of good and evil deeds, but the wise stand in awe and believe in the law of karmic causation. Good and evil deeds cause karmic retribution, as a figure causes a shadow. Were the fact of karmic retribution not known, how could we rectify wickedness and establish righteousness? In addition, one of the most famous illustrations of causality in Buddhism is the wild fox koan. Dates back to the 11th century. A koan is part parable, part puzzle, part paradox, and is frequently used in Chan and Zen Buddhism as a way of getting people to try to expand their mind and widen their thinking. As the story goes, a Buddhist abbot was once asked if a person of great cultivation could fall into causality. The abbot responded, Furoku Inga. This phrase literally translates as not falling into causality, but it has also been interpreted as becoming free from causality, not subject to causality, or believing that enlightenment lies beyond and does not fall into causality. But when the abbot gave his answer, he was turned into a fox. After being reborn as a fox across 500 lifetimes, the fox abbot approached a monk and asked for help. This time, the fox abbot was the one who asked if a person of great cultivation could fall into causality. The monk responded with Fume Inga, often translated as not obscuring causality, but it could also be translated as not blind to causality or remains bound to causality. Upon hearing this, the abbot was released from his persona and was transformed back into a human. One of the most famous commentaries on the Wild Fox koan comes from the Zen master Dogen. If you've played Sekiro, the name Dogen might sound familiar because the real-life Dogen was an inspiration for the character of the same name in the game. Now in All World, Dogen criticized the teaching of negating causality as a false teaching. He believed that anyone who denies causality will experience excessive misfortune and would be deeply ignorant. Now with all of this in mind, let's get back to Miquella and the DLC. So much of the suffering in the game is linked in a chain of causal connections. I interpret Miquella as trying to go beyond this system of karmic consequence. As Miquella himself tells us,
If you have known sin, if you grieve for this world, then yield the path forward to us. I'll make the world a gentler place.
This is further backed up by the incantation Light of Miquella, which says that Miquella sought to accept all that was and would be. What I really like about connecting Miquella with the Law of Causality is that depending on your interpretation of causality in Buddhism, that can affect your interpretation of Miquella's motivations and his actions. Are his actions falling into causality, or are they not obscuring causality? And there is actually a very good argument for either, which I do appreciate. You could interpret going beyond causality as inherently naive, or that he's ignorant of the fundamental laws of existence in the game. You could also interpret his actions as well-meaning, but innately flawed and doomed to fail. However, a more optimistic reading of Miquella could be that he is very aware of causality, and he is not blind to it at all, since after all, he is linked with the spell Law of Causality. Him becoming a god could actually succeed in overcoming causality. On a different note, I do hope Frog Nation, FromSoft, or Bandai Namco can rectify this translation issue. Fortunately, it's much easier to fix this translation issue than the Age of Stars ending. To rectify the Ranni ending, that would require rehiring the original voice actor, bringing them back into the studio and recording new lines, which could be quite expensive. Meanwhile, fixing this mistranslation would only require changing one item description, and a handful of words if that. And FromSoft has already corrected mistakes in item descriptions well after launch, especially when they have major lore significance. There was a lone reference to a dusk-eyed queen that was changed to gloam-eyed queen in the Godslayer's Greatsword, and already in the DLC, a reference in the Watchful Spirit spell to the Empyrean Grandam was changed to Hornsent Grandam. So I'm hoping they can do something similar for Miquella's Great Rune. If you're looking for more information about Miquella's role in the DLC, I do have an entire video about him and the final boss. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to know what yins think. If this video helped you escape some sorrow, please let me know down below.